Welcome to Frontline at 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we begin tonight with some news out of Los Angeles, California, where Democrat Mayor Karen Bass can't believe that Latinos want to uphold the law.
I think it's sad. I think that those Border Patrol agents are going to have a difficult time when they're out in the field and they see what actually happens in real life, separate from their training.
Sounding pretty racist there, Mayor Bass, lumping all Latinos in a single basket, thinking that they all must want open borders. Also this, FBI Director Kash Patel is shutting down the Bureau's J. Edgar Hoover headquarters in D.C. Patel will then move the FBI's workforce into the Reagan building just blocks away from the White House. The move will save taxpayers $5 billion. And Supermom, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announcing she's expecting her second baby girl, a second child. Oh, wow, it's so exciting. In May, Leavitt thanking God for the blessings of motherhood, calling it the closest thing to heaven on earth. As a mom myself, I can definitely agree. I'm Lidia Curanaj in for Carl Higbie, and Frontline starts right now. An attack on one is an attack on us all. That's been President Trump's message when it came to Americans. And now he's extending it to Christians around the world with a strike on ISIS in Nigeria. The Pentagon releasing this video reporting that the strike targeted multiple militants at known ISIS camps. War Secretary Pete Hegseth thanking the Nigerian government for its support and cooperation in a post on X, adding that there was, quote, more to come. Now the damage and the casualties are still being assessed. President Trump calling yesterday's U.S. strikes on Islamic radicals in Nigeria a Christmas gift. Here's the president calling into WABC radio this morning.
I told Nigeria and I told the people around Nigeria that if you do it, you're going to get hit. And I said yesterday, I said, hit them on Christmas Day. It'll be a Christmas present.
And it certainly was. But, you know, Trump has been warning Islamic terrorists for weeks now that if the killing of Christians didn't stop, there would be hell to pay.
The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. It's not only Nigeria, it's all over. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. This is not going to happen. The killing of Christians is not going to happen.
Yet the liberal media working in overdrive, claiming that the White House narrative doesn't match what's actually happening on the grounds in Nigeria. Just take a listen to this Bloomberg reporter.
This is really a narrative we've seen from Washington. Trump has mentioned several times he's worried about the persecution of Christians. We even have Ted Cruz in the Senate who's tried to get Nigeria labeled as a country that persecutes Christians. But this, kind of the narrative, at least here, that really appeals to the MAGA base doesn't actually match what we're seeing in terms of the actual conditions on the ground.
Oh, and it doesn't stop there. Sky News reporting that there's been zero reports of any terror on the ground whatsoever.
We have spoken to a journalist on the ground in Sokoto who said to us that one of the communities hit by the strikes has never reported any incident of terror, and that the two communities hit simultaneously, there is only expected to be one where maybe potentially some hideouts of IS-affiliated fighters have been hit. Still very unclear, but in the community that has never reported any terror, they haven't had any casualties, but some homes of civilians have been partially damaged.
Damage? Is her brain damaged? I mean, seriously, equipping the persecuted.org, releasing video from just days ago showing the mass burial of 12 Christians. There's that video right there, massacred by Islamic jihadist militants. I mean, this is a horrific scene. But this scene actually underscores the atrocities and the killings and abductions of Christians that's been going on for years now. A report by the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law revealing that Islamist groups have killed more than 7,000 Christians in Nigeria. and kidnapped almost another 8,000 in 2025 alone. And it's not just the fake news with its desperate attempts to discredit the White House. China, right, is now slamming President Trump as well, claiming that he's just using the slaughter of Christians as an excuse to interfere. Yet China knows all about slaughtering. Remember the one-child rule? And, you know, this is what I think. Ever since the president was shot, I think something spiritual happened to him, kind of an awakening. He underwent this kind of spiritual transformation. You know, Trump has always professed his Christian faith. He always talked about it. But I think he now knows that God saved his life that fateful July 13th day for a reason.
The birth of Jesus Christ is the true miracle we celebrate each Christmas. He is the ultimate source of our joy, our hope, and our sense of peace.
I mean, on Christmas Day, we also saw multiple Christ-centered Christmas messages from the Trump administration. Senator Marco Rubio writing, "The joyous message of Christmas is the hope of eternal life through Christ." The Department of Labor, quote, "Let earth receive her king." And the Department of Homeland Security writing, "Rejoice, America, Christ is born," right? I mean, quite the difference from what we saw from Biden's Christmas celebration. Remember this freak show, right? The Christmas celebration where a nativity scene was nowhere to be found. We just saw weirdos dancing up down the hallways. They expected Americans to bow down to the altar of woke. And remember this scene? A child had to remind Dr. Jill Biden what this holiday season is really about.
Hello. How are you? Hi. Happy holidays. Hi.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Yes.
And Merry Christmas to you all, even you, Jill Biden. And all I have to say in conclusion is thank God Trump is back. And may God continue to bless him always. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Michael Baumgartner. He is a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and he was just part of a congressional delegation that visited Nigeria. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleased to be with you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too. What a difference, right, compared to the last administration and this one. Christmas was just yesterday. President Trump delivering this gift that you touch a hair on a Christian's head anywhere around the world. They said this is just the beginning. What are your thoughts on what the president did in Nigeria?
Well, I was in Nigeria just 3 days ago, and we had met with a number of Nigerian government officials and also leaders of the Christian community, and they very much felt like they were under attack. They told us personal stories of people they knew being attacked by Islamist militants, and they were very pleased that President Trump and Republicans were taking note, and that, in a sense, they felt like they were not alone, that going into the Christmas season, that their pleas were being heard. So it was quite a good trip, and I applaud President Trump for taking this decisive action.
You know, what do you think about the leftist media downplaying the Christian persecution and downplaying the fact that he is defending Christians, the slaughter of them? The BBC actually asking the question, are Christians being persecuted in Nigeria, as Trump claims? I mean, look at this headline. And then CNN, no better, their headline reading, Trump says violence in Nigeria targets Christians. The reality is more nuanced. I mean, President Trump could say the sky is blue and they'll argue it. We've heard all the reports on the ground. You were just there 3 days ago. Is this Trump derangement syndrome to a whole new level?
It really is Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, it's important to note that these strikes were welcomed by the Nigerian government. They're coordinated by the Nigerian government. They realize they have an Islamist problem, extremist problem in the country, and you know, essentially the fact that President Trump is engaged on this has given new initiative within the Nigerian political establishment to be more serious about this problem. But I think these people that are saying this isn't happening should go to the same lunch where I went to, where we were meeting with pastors and ministers, you know, Nigerians on the ground that talk about how their communities are not safe and that Islamic extremists are targeting them with kidnappings and killings. And, you know, not everything has to revolve around the Western political mindset. And it's unfortunate that these detractors that are saying this stuff is fake can't remove themselves from their own partisan political binders and just look at the facts on the ground. And the facts there are being Christians attacked. And it is good for the Nigerian government and for the communities there, both Muslims and Christians alike, that extremists be rooted out. So this is in America's national security interests, and it certainly is the right thing to do.
We have about a minute left. You know, the numbers are staggering according to the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law. Jihadists have killed 185,000 Nigerians since 2009, two-thirds of which were Christians. 19,000 churches were razed, they were destroyed, hundreds of clerics abducted, 200 school children just released. I mean, we keep hearing about priests being massacred, martyred, nuns, and yet they want to tell us the news is just looking the other way. And then when you show them the proof, they're denying reality. Why do you think that is?
Well, again, they're deranged, but the reality, the facts on the ground speak for themselves. And again, America cannot be the world's policeman everywhere. Mm-hmm. So the key here is for us to work with Nigerian government officials to get them to focus on the issue and then to provide them support and targeting assistance so they can root out these extremists. We've seen Islamic jihadism around the globe. I was in Iraq and Afghanistan and have dealt with it in other areas, and it's going to be a persistent threat, and it's one that needs to be pushed back on. And, President Trump has done the right thing here. He's very good at foreign policy. And again, he's showing it here in Nigeria. So, but again, this is bringing hope to the Christian communities there. I heard that firsthand 3 days ago. And so all Americans should take pride in what President Trump and what American forces are doing here in Nigeria with these strikes.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us, sir. And Merry Christmas again. Thanks. And Happy New Year.
Thank you. And to you as well.
Thank you. For more on this, let's bring in founder and CEO of Across Nigeria Mission Organization, working with communities there. Sir, thank you so much for joining us, Brad. You were on the ground, right? You've heard the people. You've been there. You've seen it firsthand, just like the congressman right there. So to see all of these news reports, reporters literally coming out and saying Christians are not being persecuted, that there is no terror on the ground. What do you have to say to that, sir?
Yeah, it's maddening that they would even make those claims. And all they're doing is echoing the claims of the Nigerian government, who's been denying that anything's been happening there for over 10 years. I've been working there for over 10 years. I spend most of the year in Nigeria, embedded in the communities. I speak their language. I've stood at the mass graves. I've had friends of mine killed. For Laura Davidson from Bloomberg to get up and say that there's no violence against Christians and there's no genocide, has she been there? Has she gone there? Has she bothered to talk to anybody? Because, they claim that President Trump is the one who's saying that there's genocide and persecution happening. That's not true. It's the Nigerian Christians who are saying it. It's people like me who've been there, have spent time there, who've stood at the mass graves and had our friends killed. We're the ones who are saying it. It's just President Trump who's listening to us when other presidents refuse to hear us. We've been crying from the mountaintops for the last 10 years, and nobody's been listening. President Trump is finally listening and taking action.
I said in my monologue that I believe that God saved Trump's life that fateful day for a reason, because you remember I was covering the rally that night. And then when I saw him get shot, he was looking kind of at a little chart that he never uses. And I said, what are the chances? What are the chances to miss that bullet missing going into his skull at that precise very moment? We're talking millimeters from death. Do you think that the president was saved for a reason?
I absolutely think that the president was saved for a reason. The Bible makes it very clear that God establishes our leaders, and God saved President Trump so that he could take a stand when nobody else is taking a stand. There's a genocide of Christians happening in northern Nigeria. Over 80,000 Christians have been killed since 2009. President Obama didn't do anything about it. President Biden didn't do anything about it. In fact, one of the first things that President Biden did when he took office was he took Nigeria off the country of particular concern list. All the while, thousands of Christians were being killed. Why is that? President Trump takes office, and here he is taking action. He's putting action to his words, and he's doing something about the radical jihadism that has taken over northern Nigeria and is violently targeting Christians all throughout the region.
Is it because these people are Christians? Is it because they're black? I don't understand why people aren't more outraged. I mean, the church was built on martyrdom. Jesus died for our sins. And to see Christians kind of look, so-called Christians, look the other way and not care, what do you think? Why do you think that is?
Well, I go back to everything is a spiritual battle. At the core of everything, it's a spiritual battle. And evil needs darkness to operate. It's only when God's people take light and bring light to the hidden things of darkness. That's why there's a denial of this genocide that's happening. Every genocide since World War II has had its deniers, whether it's the Rwandan genocide or the Cambodian genocide. Certainly, there's even Holocaust deniers to this day. Evil needs the cover of darkness to continue doing what it's doing. We're pulling the covers off of that darkness. We're shining light into that darkness. President Trump is helping us do that. But of course, whenever you shine light into the darkness, people aren't going to like it because they want to continue to do what they want to do. And it's evil. At its core, it's evil, and it's a spiritual battle.
It certainly is. And all you need is a little bit of light to abolish that darkness. It's incredible. And God bless you for shining that spotlight and shining that light on what's really happening, the truth. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you. Coming up, Joe Biden, he wishes America a Merry Christmas, but just like his presidency, they're hiding Biden. We'll have that in our culture clash, but first, Dan Bongino, he may be leaving the FBI soon, but that doesn't diminish the work he helped usher in at the Bureau this year. That and much more next. You're watching Frontline.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
balanceofnature.com and lock in 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino is leaving the FBI with his head held high as the Bureau has reportedly doubled violent crime arrests in 17 cities under Trump compared to under President Otto Penn. Bongino taking to X today stating, quote, the director and I strategically moved around FBI assets to the pockets of the country where violent crime was concentrated. And when we combined their strategic resource allocation with broken windows policing and target prioritization analysis, the results were dramatic. What a concept. Enforce the law and broken windows. You prosecute those lower level crimes so they don't get to the bigger ones. Joining us now, national security expert and Newsmax contributor Charles Marino. Also with us, Newsmax legal analyst Jay Town. Charles Marino, what do you think about this? I mean, it makes sense. I remember Bratton police commissioner, former New York City Police Commissioner Bratton. He's the one that started with the broken windows policing under Mayor Giuliani, and that's how they turned around New York City. What a revolutionary concept, right?
Well, that's right. And it's amazing the progress you can make when you actually want to solve the problem. And as we know, this starts at the top with President Trump. Dan Bongino, also former NYPD, before he and I worked together in the Secret Service. We're all very familiar with the NYPD model, following CompStat and metrics and following those metrics and surging police to squash the crime. We used to call it putting cops on the dots. They placed dots on the maps, and wherever crime was surging, those are the areas that they went after. And that's why I wasn't surprised when I saw the initial structure and model utilized in Washington, D.C. I knew it was going to work there. So did Dan Bongino, so did the president and Kash Patel. And that's why they're using it in the rest of the country, and primarily in sanctuary cities where crime is out of control.
It certainly is. You know, the FBI does what it can, right, to arrest criminals on the federal level. But then you've got these rogue judges who create this revolving door of justice, like the career criminal who slammed a board with a screw into the face of an elderly woman in Seattle. Like this, it's so horrific. He gouged out her right eye. Jeanette Markin, 75 years old, this poor woman. The suspect, this guy, a career criminal. That's the wrong picture. That's not the right one, guys. It should be the video. The career criminal. You should see this guy. He says he's trans. His lawyer calls him Miss Fale Pea. He was just arrested a few months ago for stabbing someone 8 times. And then there's this criminal. This is Donnie Allen, if you want to show that video right there. This guy. He's accused of murdering a man just 5 days after a nonprofit posted his $500 bond. The judge in the case lowered his bail from $15,000 to $5,000. She calls it compassionate release. J-Town, where is the compassion for the innocent victims, for Irina Zarutska, for Laken Riley, for all these people that are being massacred by career criminals?
The problem with soft on crime policies, judges, prosecutors, the whole gambit, is that they actually, a couple of things. They discount the purpose of law enforcement, which is to public safety, but they also have a preference of the criminal. And you mentioned Donnie Allen. His family members begged the bail project, who actually paid for his bail, but begged the court, begged the system not to let him out because he would reoffend. And what does he do just days later after he's bonded out? He commits a murder. We have to.
And this is Fale Pea, by the way, Jay. I don't want to interrupt you. This is the Fale Pea guy, 42 years old. He's been arrested multiple times. He stabbed somebody recently. He's the guy that made that stick and put nails and and screws at the end of it and took out Jeanette Markin's eye. He broke bones in her face. Why are people? And it's funny when he was. It's not funny, but when people came to help Jeanette Markin, police knew exactly. Oh, Fale, was it Fale Pea? Yeah, we see him all the time. So even the police knew that this guy's violent, and yet these same type of people, they're always out on the streets.
The purpose of a bond is to ensure appearance in court and protect society. And granting a bond to people like Pea does neither. He has 9 failure to appear warrants just in the last 4 years. 9. He has like a dozen convictions for assault. And here we are again with a very violent felony assault. So we have to, as a country, get a handle on these soft on crime policies, judges and prosecutors.
And he looks like a woman there, right? Charles Marino, he identifies as a woman. That's what his lawyer said, calling him Miss Pea. So what do you think about, you got these criminals, they're gaming the system because they want to get into the female prisons. And, you know, I don't know. And then I want to talk about this story, too. Conservatives have been sounding the alarm about illegals driving big rigs. California's DMV revoking 17,000 licenses, and now the state is being sued by the illegal truck drivers who say that revoking their licenses violate their rights and threaten their livelihood. At what point did our justice system get flipped upside down, where we care more about the criminals? Let's put them in the jails with the women, and let's let them have licenses even though they're illegal.
Yeah, well, just like when we were talking about the border, this was under the Biden administration, a system that was allowed to be gamed. And that's exactly what these criminals are going to do. They're going to game the system if they're allowed to do that, especially if there's an opportunity to commit crimes over and over again or make money from it. So, this is not shocking to me at all. It seems like there's 3 career tracks without any form of accountability. You can run a sanctuary city, you can be a radical judge, or you can become a weather person. There's no accountability for getting anything wrong.
There certainly isn't. Charles, Marino, J-Town, thank you both.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thanks, Lydia.
Coming up, Biden, just like his presidency, wait until you see Joe Biden's Christmas message. And then this, a taxpayer-funded daycare center that has no children. The growing fraud allegations happening, guess where? All that and much more in our Culture Clash coming up next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
I was tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now, thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Really?
Really. Single Care crushes the cost of my prescription, almost as much as I'm crushing Chad.
Unbelievable. See why more people are saving with Single Care. Common side effects include shockingly lower prices, excessive fist bumps, and humbling guys named Chad.
Sleepy Joe Biden took to social media yesterday to say Merry Christmas. But this photo obviously wasn't posted by him. And it's like a Where's Waldo, because you can't even find him in the photo. Look at that. Jill is literally in front of him, of course. And You know, there's Hunter front and center, hiding Biden. Oh, poor thing. Joining us now to talk about this and more, Brittany Hughes, managing editor of MRC TV. Also with us, Bill D'Agostino, senior research analyst for the Media Research Center. Brittany, par for the course, right? When a picture says 1,000 words.
Yeah, I thought exactly what you just said. It was kind of a fun game. It was Where's Waldo? You just had to find Biden back there somewhere. What I really want to know is why in the world on your Christmas card would you put Hunter Biden front and center? That was very strange to me. But again, this is just kind of emblematic of his entire presidency. You know, just kind of shuffle him off to the back. But of course, the media will tell you that he's sharp as a tack. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to sniff the child, and that's why they kind of put him off in the back there a little bit.
I know,
absolutely ridiculous.
He's older. He's got stage 4 cancer, and it's like, throw him in the back. Ugh.
Yeah.
That makes me almost feel sorry for him. Speaking of somebody that I should not feel sorry for because his career is imploding, Jimmy Kimmel, he was asked to give a Christmas message to UK viewers yesterday, and of course to us viewers, and he had some words about Trump. Look at this.
I honestly have no idea what's going on over there. I do know what's going on over here, though. And I can tell you that from a fascism perspective, this has been a really great year. Tyranny is booming over here. Maybe you're thinking, oh, a government silencing its critics is something that happens in places like Russia or North Korea or LA, not the UK. Well, that's what we thought. And now we've got King Donnie VIII calling for executions.
Bill, do you remember when the Prince Harry, well, formerly known as Prince Harry, when he was trying to call Trump a king? What do you think of this, Jimmy Kimmel trying to stay relevant?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, especially because he's talking to a country where like 1,000 people a month get arrested for Facebook and Twitter posts, and he's talking about silencing speech. It's like, Jimmy, if you knew anything, you'd realize what an idiot you sound like. But then again, if he knew anything, he'd probably not have the job that he has. Because he's basically just supposed to be a puppet for the Democrat regime, and he plays that part about as well as he can.
Right.
I mean, the idea that tyranny is booming is you can hear that on basically any daytime MS Now show. I'm still getting used to saying that, MS Now. But you can hear that on basically any daytime MS Now show, and yet you're hearing Jimmy Kimmel say it as though it were some kind of punchline. And that's basically what all of these late night shows have become at this point, right? It's literally no different from just left-wing cable.
I want you truly, this next story, you truly can't make this up. Check out this daycare center for children. Look at this. Just look at it real quick.
Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday, and if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed.
So it's in Minnesota. Shocking. Millions of dollars. Daycare center with no kids. Brittany.
Yeah, so this is Nick Shirley. He's the independent journalist that you see in the video here, and he actually filmed himself going to multiple Somali-run daycare centers in Minnesota that have received literally tens of millions of dollars cumulatively in government funding. But he shows up and there's literally nobody there. The doors are locked. There are no children. But he has documentation showing the millions of dollars that they're getting for the children that are supposedly registered. And of course, this comes on the heels of just a couple weeks ago, we saw hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud that had been found in food charities, Somali-run food charities in Minnesota, through much of it through a program that was sponsored in Congress by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And the big question here is, this is clearly happening. There's at least enough here to look into. Why isn't this a national news story? I mean, it's taking an independent journalist going up and knocking on the doors of these places to try to get to the bottom of this for the American taxpayer. Does anybody with a news van want to chime in here?
Well,
I mean, ABC, CNN, anybody?
It's racist, Brittany. It's racist. That's what's going on. I want to get to this story. Speaking of Minnesota, take a look at this, Bill. The pandering, it's nauseating. I thought Mayor Fry was bad when he was shoveling the food and the speaking Somali. Take a look at Minnesota's lieutenant governor. Look at this.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota. I will continue to stand with the Somali community to be with you and to do all I can to return the friendship.
So she's in America. She's a lieutenant governor. She's wearing the head wrap. She's speaking the language. I mean, how ridiculous is this bill? 30 seconds to you.
I mean, yeah, it's desperate. I will say I actually think she's correct that Somalis basically are a part of the fabric of Minnesota, because the entire fabric of Minnesota now is essentially just a rich tapestry of fraud sponsored by Democrats, right? And so, yes, in that regard, unfortunately, they are very much a part of the fabric of Minnesota. I will just say pandering is nothing new for this lady. If you look at her X account right now, you will learn that her Ojibwe name is, and I'm going to butcher this, Gizi Wiwi Damukwe. That's it. It says that on X. So that's about all you need to know about this lady.
So Peggy Flattery, what's her name? Peggy. That translates to what is it
Flanagan.
again? What is it again?
Gizi Wiwi Damukwe. Beautiful language. Whatever Ojibwe is.
You can't make this. How do you say fraud in that language? Brittany and Bill, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lydia.
Coming up, Trump has been in office for less than a year, but all the achievements he's accomplished within this short period, they are truly astronomical. We're going to talk about it next on the thriving economy. Next.
How could a person not feel overwhelmed coming here?
Christmas time is special, more so in Israel, the birthplace of Jesus. Ambassador Mike Huckabee shares the experience this holiday season. Watch Mike Huckabee's Christmas in Israel.
A mesothelioma diagnosis is overwhelming, but you don't have to go through it alone. Our firm is exclusively dedicated to only serving mesothelioma victims and their families. With decades of success, our team of nurses and attorneys will fight for the compensation and care you deserve. We'll even come to you. This is our MesoCare promise. Call us now so you can focus on what matters most.
Call now and we'll come to you for a free consultation. Call 800-600-3850 or go to mesobook.com.
Nobody does insurance like the zebra.
Okay. Got you, Mike.
I just found the perfect policy at the best price for you. Told you. Nobody does insurance like the zebra. We monitor your insurance and inform you of savings the moment we find it, so you never have to second guess your policy or your price. Find out how much you can save today. Hooves in.
I wanted to have control over drinking instead of alcohol having control over me. I started with Or Health about a year ago. It put the brakes on that I had been looking for. I can drink less and say no, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
I was serving in Afghanistan back in May 31st, 2012. I stepped on an IED. And then I just thought, please be alive, please be alive, please be alive.
And then I woke up at 4:30 in the morning with 7 missed calls from his dad saying that he's alive, he's coming home. And the next 5 days just felt like being underwater.
Oh, I was terrified.
So Luke's Wings heard about us, and on December 23rd, they reached out and they flew our whole family up.
Since 2008, Luke's Wings has brought families together, providing over 16,000 flights for wounded service members while they recover. This Christmas and Hanukkah, our mission is bold, to reunite 500 heroes with their loved ones, but we can't do it alone. For just $12 a month, you can be the reason someone's Christmas shines a little brighter.
When Christmas came around, they stepped right up and they saved my whole holiday.
Thank you, Luke's Wings.
Thank you, Luke's Wings.
Please give today.
I'm Eric. I'm a pilot. When I'm congested, I can't breathe. I can't sleep. But I can't tell my passengers I can't fly today. That's why I Navage. I've tried nasal sprays, but with Navage, I have the power to remove congestion fast by flushing out germs, mucus, bacteria, and viruses through powered suction in like 30 seconds. I can see the results. I can feel the results.
This cold season, get #1 doctor-recommended Navage, available online and in store.
Talking to people today about their retirement accounts. Sir, excuse me.
Yeah.
Do you have a retirement account?
Yeah, I've got a TSP from my old government job.
How's that doing?
I'm forgetting about it. I
can't contribute to it. There are fees to get the funds, and the investment options are limited, so the money's just stuck.
How about a gold IRA?
I can do that.
Absolutely. You can roll it into a gold IRA, and you have all the same tax advantages as a TSP, but with more flexibility. And you can put physical gold and silver in your retirement account.
I'm taking control with Noble Gold Investments.
Your retirement, your rules. Noble Gold.
The liberals love to put down Trump's successes and only highlight the flaws, but the numbers speak for themselves why he was voted into the White House by 80 million Americans. 79%, that is the increase in GDP growth under President Trump. Now, GDP stands for gross domestic product, and it's basically a country's economic scorecard. Of course, this type of growth, it doesn't happen by chance and it doesn't happen overnight. And here's how Trump's economic policies turned it all around. First, he started off with the foundation, and he passed a big, beautiful bill, which lowered taxes and put American workers first. I know, revolutionary, right? Second was the global tariffs he imposed to lessen trade deficits and bring manufacturing back to the United States. And here is Trump noting on Truth Social that the tariffs, he wrote, are responsible for the great USA economic numbers just announced, and they will only get better. Also, no inflation and great national security. Pray for the U.S. Supreme Court. Third was Trump's deregulation policy, rolling back on federal rules to help cut corporate costs. And fourth was Trump's drill, baby, drill policies that are clearly they're working, lowering energy costs. You're seeing it at gas stations and producing oil and natural gases from right here in the United States instead of buying dirty oil from places like Venezuela. And lastly, his plans to lower interest rates, hopefully to 1%, with him openly challenging Fed Chair Jay Powell, who will be leaving in May. The lower rates can mean cheaper mortgages, stronger investments, and more growth for Americans. Who would have thought, folks, that a billionaire businessman would know how to make America wealthy once again? Joining me now to discuss, political commentator and TPUSA speaker Ian Haworth. Also with us, former Trump White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Ian, a big battle, right, that Republicans are facing, I think, is the Democrat messaging machine, affordability crisis, right? This and that. What do you think Republicans need to work on? What do they need to do to get the facts out that, like we just laid out?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that the quote-unquote affordability crisis is the buzzword of this election, but it's always been the economy. Every election fundamentally comes down to the economy. That's been the same since the dawn of democracy. And so I don't think this is anything necessarily different. I think the challenge Republicans face, as they always face, is the fact that the Democrats were cheering on Biden's around 2% GDP growth. When it comes to Trump's almost double that, they're putting it down and they're ignoring it. So that's obviously something the Republicans need to get over. But I'm also I'm going to upset both sides when I see these numbers, because I think there are some things we need to wait to actually come out. I think there's a lot of estimates behind these numbers. But fundamentally, they're showing something positive, that the economy is moving in a good direction. But what Republicans need to do is they need to speak to the Americans who voted for them. They need to speak to the lower income, middle income Americans whose wages aren't increasing as they're being promised, who are struggling to afford things like healthcare. Healthcare costs were a big part of the GDP growth, rather strangely. And so I think this needs to be a step in the direction of actually speaking to Americans who are still struggling. Something like this is great for PR. It's great for the press secretary or for various secretaries of Trump's administration to come out and boast about. That's the rules of politics. But we need to be speaking to actual American voters who may not be seeing the exact results that are being presented to them right now.
And Hogan, what are your thoughts? Because I feel like the Democrats are beating, and the media, they're hammering this down, the affordability crisis, and we're seeing inflation now. It's at one of its record lows.
Yeah, here's the issue, though. Honestly, the Democrats so deliciously did exactly what they always do, and they point to a word like affordability, which means nothing. Mm-hmm. What's affordable to you may not be affordable to me.
That's right.
I can go buy eggs at $5 a carton. I can afford it, but I don't think it's affordable. You see, it's just a feeling. It's not real. What we're actually measuring here are costs. Costs under this administration are coming down. You are now paying less for gas, less for groceries, less for a house than you were under the Biden administration. That's where the messaging needs to focus. I would warn, though, the administration and many of the listeners out there, you don't want to fall into the trap that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden fell into, which is telling the American people they're doing better off than they feel they are. Now, under the Biden administration, it was a lie. The border was, in fact, open, even though they said it was closed. Gas was expensive, even though they said it was really cheap. They said there was no crime, even though there was a lot of crime. The truth is on the side of the Republicans. They need to continue to message it. But also remember, you pointed to something at the top of the segment. The big, beautiful bill that Congress passed, which had so many things in it, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for seniors, largest tax cut in American history, that doesn't take effect until next year. So a lot of the things we're going to see, couple that with the deregulation effort of this administration, where you start to see businesses thrive, the gasoline prices continuing to come down. These are things that will help, not just couple with the messaging, but chip away at the bad feeling the American people have. Because while feeling isn't necessarily a barometer, it does kind of tell you which way the country's going. But the bad feeling, the Republicans need to ascribe to where it's supposed to be ascribed to, and that is with the Democrats, who gave us a horrific 4 years under Joe Biden.
They certainly, it's crazy how the Democrats are weaponizing the very economy they destroyed against Trump. And he's always talked about the economy, but perception is reality. So I definitely agree with that point there. Don't tell people how they feel, because you can feel a certain way. So they've got a lot of work to do to turn it around, and it can't be done overnight. But Trump is working lightning speed, obviously. Ian and Hogan, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, Trump is set to meet with Zelensky at Mar-a-Lago on Sunday. Are we finally getting closer to ending this war, which is now longer than World War II? Those details are next.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop and bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms, so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs in weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
This is the story of the one who knows that being ready for the unexpected comes from having a partner like Grainger, whose professional-grade products and next-day delivery help ensure that he and his team are prepared to rise to every challenge, so he can be confident that he has what he needs when he needs it to help keep patients safe and happy. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Discover why Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support at livehuman.com.
It's an historically hideous season.
It's our 100th ugly house.
And if these walls could talk.
Do you cry a lot?
I do.
Ugliest House in America, season premiere, Wednesday, January 7th at 8 on HGTV.
President Trump is all set to meet with Ukraine's President Zelensky on Sunday at Mar-a-Lago for peace talks to end the nearly 4-year war in Ukraine. Longer than World War II at this point, Zelensky took to Twitter and wrote, "We have agreed on a meeting at the highest level with President Trump in the near future. A lot can be decided before the new year." Certainly can. Joining us now, John Jordan, former Naval Intelligence Officer. Also with us, General Blaine Holt, retired Brigadier General of the U.S. Air Force. So please, I'm so tired of like this Ukraine. It's like ongoing. What's at? We know Putin, but Zelensky, both have to give. What are your thoughts? Is this a good sign that we're going to see Zelensky meeting with Trump in Mar-a-Lago, General Blaine?
Yeah, it is a great sign because they wouldn't, they wouldn't actually be allowing the meeting between Zelensky and President Trump if there wasn't real reason to believe that substantive success couldn't be had and had soon. And so, honestly, I think this is President Zelensky's last chance in the batter's box with President Trump, because it's really been the European leaders that have been kind of an impediment to all of the Trump diplomacy. In fact, you've got Kaja Kallas saying we shouldn't even be talking to the Russians right now, which is nothing but pure escalation. Also good that Kirill Dmitriev showed up in Miami right after the Ukrainians left. That means they're actually coordinating positions. It's really going to be about territory, and it's going to be about final status. Is it going to be a frozen conflict, or is it going to be an ended war with new borders drawn?
John, earlier in the show, we talked about Trump wiping out ISIS forces in Nigeria. Turkish forces have now arrested more than 100 individuals who plan to carry out Islamic State group-linked terror attacks during Christmas and New Year's Eve celebrations. The Istanbul police chief was tipped off that the extremist group called for action targeting non-Muslims. We're seeing Islamic extremism here in the United States, all across the world. President Trump has been leading the charge to wipe them out. Your thoughts, John?
Well, Turkey is a Muslim country, the only Muslim country that's a member of NATO. They're in an interesting position. They're part of NATO, but at the same time, they have this Russian S-400 surface-to-air missile system that now they're dying to get rid of to get readmitted to the F-35 program. And Syria and Turkey's long been part of the coalition against ISIS. I'd like to jump into something that General Holt said real fast. And I'm interested to hear his reaction. I am very concerned that the Russians may be just stringing this along, that we're not at the end game with regard to the war in Ukraine. The Russians may be just stretching this out to divide us from Europe and to mitigate sanctions effects for the reason that nobody's talking about. Can the Russians really bring those 700,000 troops home? Is that politically viable for Putin, given how they have been mistreated, their status and the disconnect between the media narratives that the Russian public's been fed, and how that will work when these troops come home to an economy in collapse, and especially in the shadow of the Putin march on Moscow? I'm concerned that the Russians made the calculation that politically they cannot bring these troops home, and everything else is a Russian word for it is maskirovka, or a charade to deal with diplomatic and economic fallout.
You make an excellent point there. General, real quick, yes, you want to respond?
Yeah, those are all good points, John. The only thing I would say is be careful before we say that the Russian economy is absolutely in the shredder. They're sitting on $75 trillion in natural resources. The other thing is, if they're going to hold the land that they've seized, they're going to need an occupation force, and they're going to keep those folks right there, probably rotate them out. There's no question that Putin's got some problems ahead in the days ahead, but the other part of it is he's got to get access to the world commons. And right now, that NSS that just got written, the National Security Strategy is an olive branch, a tether he should be grabbing onto right now.
All right, gentlemen, great conversation. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you both. I got to wrap this up. Thank you both. All right, before we go, heroic kids. Oh my God, wait till you see this video. Don't go anywhere.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble. And even the best kibbles still get kibbled. Which means they're ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. Then they have to add synthetic nutrients back in just to meet label requirements.
Are they all like this?
Sadly, they are. These poor pups have low energy, bad digestion, itchiness, and allergies, all from eating ultra-processed junk food for every single meal. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Real meats, real fruits, real veggies, nothing else. Never kibbled.
You got it, kid. So don't kibble your dog. Dr. Marty will make your best friend healthier, and they're gonna love it, guaranteed.
At Lumber Liquidators, we have the best prices on flooring, and we guarantee it. Find a lower price, we will beat it with our best price guarantee. We have over 200 stores nationwide. Find yours at lumberliquidators.com. Tell them Tom sent you. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details, and make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
Wow, those kids are incredible. What you just saw right there. 2 siblings in Ashland, Ohio, jumping to the rescue when they noticed that their bus driver was having a medical emergency. Middle schoolers Katrina and Charlie called for help using the radio on the bus. They amazingly, you can hear them cool, calm, and collected. They saved the bus driver's life, and of course, everyone else's on that bus as well. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I hope she would be able to do something like this. So. Incredible kids. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Frontline. Carl Higbie will be back on Monday. Again, I'm Lidia Curanaj. Trust and remember that God is with you in all ways, always. Rob Schmidt tonight with TW Shannon starts right now.